Senator, very good to have you. You had said, sir, of Mr. Bolton that he strikes you as a disgruntled, angry man and he just wants to sell a book. You still feel that way?
You know, I think if you look at what someone has to say, you have to ask if they have any motives that might be motives that are for their own self-interest and not for the betterment of the country. So, yes, I think he's angry. He was fired. He spent his entire adult life arguing for a strong executive power and for expansive executive privilege, where the conversations between a president and their national security advisor would be protected by executive privilege. His whole life's work, he's argued for that. Now he's going to argue that no. Now that I have a book deal for a couple $1 million, that it's okay for me to say and spill the beans on everything the president said to me privately. So I think it should be taken with a grain of salt, whether or not he's a disinterested or neutral party. I think he's motivated by his own self-interest, and that should enter into the equation of whether or not we want to hear him or not.
Do you think he lied?
Well, I think it doesn't matter what he has to say, really. I think he didn't want to say anything to the House a month ago, and he was arguing executive privilege, but now that his book is completed, he's arguing the opposite, and that should just be taken into consideration. I do think that Professor Dershowitz hit it pretty well last night when he said that even if what John Bolton is now alleging is true, this is a policy difference and not something that rises to the level of an impeachment. And this has been the whole problem throughout this thing. Look, President Obama withheld aid to both Egypt and then also to Ukraine against the will of Congress, and nobody talked about impeaching him. Now that President Trump does something they don't like, a policy they don't like, all of a sudden they're up in arms and he should be impeached. It needs to be the same standard, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, or no matter which way we're looking at impeachment. All of the managers that were arguing against Clinton's impeachment because it was partisan, their arguments were used against them today. In fact, there were titters running throughout the crowd as Chuck Schumer was adamant that you shouldn't be able to go after someone that it isn't in a high crime or a misdemeanor.
He also took a swipe at the president's children. You didn't like that.
Yeah, because the thing is there's evidence that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was getting $1 million a year from one of the most corrupt companies in Ukraine, and that his father was involved in the politics of firing the prosecutor investigating that company. Those are facts. Chuck Schumer just threw out, well, what about the president? Maybe his kids are making money. It's like he threw out something that's an accusation, an ad hominem, a scurrilous attack on the president and his family without any evidence. If he has evidence of that, that's fine. But his argument was, we just need to keep investigating till we find it, because eventually we'll find out that this might be true. That, to me, is defamation of character, and surely we should be above that kind of scurrilous behavior.
You know, you talk about roles that are reversed right now, people who said things, a couple of decades ago versus now, and as recently as a few months ago versus now. The turnabout of Republicans for John Bolton, who used to be a conservative, iconic figure, it's fairly remarkable. Now, to be fair to you, Senator, you've always been questioning of his more in-your-face militaristic ideas. But do you find it surprising that Republicans used to worship the guy now all but call him a snake?
Well, I think the thing is that when it appears as if you're doing things for your own self-interest, that his whole testimony and his reason for testifying is to gin up book sales. We don't know that, right, Senator? We don't know that. We know he's no longer disinterested, and that he has a monetary advantage that will come about by ginning up and having an interview. And a month ago, he was opposed to himself interview. In fact, a month ago, he was joining in the lawsuit saying executive privilege applies. We know that he's written for decades saying that the executive should have broad, expansive war powers. He's never met a war that he didn't like. And now all of a sudden he's for, oh yeah, but private conversations should be revealed, and I'm going to reveal it. Oh yeah, if you buy my book for $29.95.
He wouldn't be the first author to maybe take advantage of the moment, deliberately or not, but I am curious about how you think this affects the president. If he dodges impeachment, do you think in retrospect he ultimately provided that aid, as Democrats were pounding in the House manager's case, because he knew the whistleblower was going to release things? He had to move fast to avoid anything incriminating. We'll never know. But is that something that looks unseemly to you?
I think why people do things, their motives, is very complicated, and that's why, Professor Dershowitz and others said you can't impeach people over trying to impugn their motives or have some kind of knowledge of their motives. But another reason why he might have released the aid, and I think this was part of the discussions, was that the impoundment rule says that you cannot withhold money past the end of the fiscal year. The end of the fiscal year was September 30th, and you released the money on September 11th. I think there is evidence that within the White House, people were saying, well, you can't hold it up more than about another 2 weeks.
It might have been the revelation of the whistleblower, right? That might have been another factor. Well, I guess we'll never know, right?
Nobody knows, but you can't impeach people for thoughts that you're not sure of.
Fair enough, sir. Thank you very, very much. Good catching up with you. Senator Rand Paul.
Thanks.